This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you didn't get to take your exam on Saturday.
Oh, that's okay. Miss Dean explained to me that the invigilator wasn't feeling well, so I understand.
Right, right. Okay. So you get some extra time, so you prepared for this week.
Yeah, definitely. I prepared
Okay. You
from
was
last.
prepared for Saturday, right? And just wanted to be over with. I understand. I
Yeah,
understand. Yeah.
but
Okay.
I grateful for the extra time.
Okay. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. So best of luck.
Thank you. Is it gonna be the same exam?
No, it won't.
Mm.
No,
But
because once a vast amount of persons would have sat the exam, it has to be changed. And we normally send out like three versions of the exam. If people
oh,
come late or people come the day after.
oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's still the same topics will still be on it though, right?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, just different versions of the questions.
Oh, okay. Lord, I hope that
Yeah.
don't make it harder.
Yeah. So just make sure you read the question and you answer what the question is asking.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Don't sound too bad.
Yeah, I'm certain you'll do well because you're here. So, we wouldn't allow you to come here if we wasn't certain that, you would have been able to move on to the next level. So I'm certain you'll do well.
Okay, I didn't even realize.
You say you didn't realize?
Sorry, I didn't realize. I didn't realize the organization. I mean, the institution. Does that does recommendations for grades and stuff like that.
Right. Well, we know that a lot of persons were trying to catch ICA for January, and
Oh,
we had a lot of requests because we normally wouldn't have put this class on now, and so we had a lot of requests so that the persons could catch ICA for January. So this was the only time we had to do it so they could move on, and so what we did is we looked at the homework and we looked at it into action and said basically, we think you understand the material and you'll be successful in the exam. So yeah, we'll approve that you move on to the next level.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not
that's the beginning.
it's not often that happens.
Right,
Normally, yeah, only because January is right there, and this was such a large group with 27 persons.
right.
We thought it made sense to
Do another
do
class.
another class and then so they wouldn't have to wait an entire year,
Yeah,
to get into ICA.
yeah. It's the oh geez, governance, risk, and compliance diploma we gonna do, right?
Yeah, so it's 9 months of anti-money laundering and 9 months of governance, risk, and compliance. So it's 18 months in total.
Oh, so that's why it's done every January. Okay.
Right. So the cohort that's in now that just finished AML is
Uh,
in October. Governance, risk, and compliance starts. And we don't encourage you to overlap because it's just too much, And so we encourage everybody to start in January. One or two persons were stubborn and they said, no, we need to, I getting in this in October, and they are overwhelmed. But the
right.
papers could be due the same time. So yeah, we encourage everybody to start in January, just so you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like I said, it's achievable and it's a good learning experience, and it's definitely a good designation to have.
Yeah. I actually supposed to meet with Miss Barnes from First Caribbean on Thursday for some advice with
Okay.
changing my because pretty much that's what I doing changing my entire career. But I can't seem to like land any internal audit rules because I noticed that a lot of people that that work in compliance now they mainly started an internal audit or analyzing or something along those lines.
Right. But see, you just really need an entry level to get your foot in the door. Um, and if I was, because you want to change your career, I would take any position.
Right.
Because you on like a learning curve, and compliance isn't an entry level position. I mean,
Right.
even if you're going to be an assistant, I would
Uh,
encourage you to start like on the teller lineup and work your way through. And why I say that is because you have to ensure that the entire organization remains compliant. So you would
right.
have to know the ins and outs of the teller. You would have to know the ins and outs of customer service.
Right.
You need to know some credit, some HR, you know, so it's good if you could get in a relief pool and just go from position, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and I encourage persons to stay in each of those positions for at least 2 years to get it down pat, and
Yeah.
then move on to compliance. But straight off the streets into compliance, I don't think it'd be very effective.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have much knowledge, but
Right. And the thing about it is, and even with audit too, because persons are gonna manipulate you. They're not gonna say, I don't do my job right, or I didn't read the policy, or I didn't read the procedure, you know?
right.
And
Well, I
you have
experienced
to
that.
like somewhat interpret what the procedure is asking you to do. And that's why I say compliance requires a lot of reading, research, and then decision making, right?
Right.
And so you wouldn't be able to make that, I guess, a good decision without that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I say, whatever position they give you entry level, take that.
I don't
Learn
even
it.
mind. It's just like, and what I noticed, my I know the new bank manager for First Caribbean over here. I know him from he graduated with my cousin, and he told my cousin that he'd be posting a teller position. So I looking out for the teller position, looking out for it. It's been like a week and a half now, and I've yet to see it. And now I starting to realize that I think he posted the position internally. So if anybody from Nassau wanted to transfer to Freeport, or if anybody from the other islands wanted to transfer from to Freeport, they more likely to be able to do that with that rule.
Right. And that's what all organizations do first. They post it internally, and then if nobody applies, or if nobody's successful, then they
They
post it externally.
Well, I hope it make
Yeah.
it to external.
Yeah, but Bria, don't the financial services sector is good, but um oil and gas needs
Mhm.
compliance. Like I say, I had a few persons from the pharmaceutical council. They
Right.
need compliance. And like I say, the policy is just whatever the law says about the pharmaceutical industry, or about the oil and gas industry. You read the policy, and then like I say, you understand how to keep the organization compliant. So it's the same premise. It's just a different industry. So don't be hell bent on financial services.
Right. Yeah.
And then the marijuana is going to be booming as well. And there's a big problem right now in agriculture where they don't know how to regulate, or charge person who steal their mangoes and their canaps, right? And so
Right.
can you imagine a marijuana field?
Right.
How we
Jeez.
just stop these people from who live in Andros, right? Because we know that's where all the fields could be. How we just
Uh,
stop these people from going on these fields in Andros and just taking as much marijuana as they wish? Could you
right.
imagine the security and the fence, the 10 feet wall you have to have around these farms?
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
like you say, the regulations too.
You can prosecute the persons who are caught stealing. Right. So agriculture, they're gonna need a lot of compliance officers if marijuana becomes, when they
Legal.
said it was legal, right? Or they were stable and
I think a certain amount right now is legal to have on you, but in terms of distribution, I don't know.
yeah, and let me just tell you, um a colleague of mine from Central Bank said they are asking, like, in people that they interview, what is their take on the laws, and are they paying attention to what's happening in the US, and
Yeah.
getting input. So the central bank is the, I don't know if they'll be the regulator for marijuana, but I'm sure they will assist the Ministry of Agriculture in developing the laws. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, look out for that.
yeah, definitely.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bullet.
Good afternoon. Can
Good
you put your full
afternoon,
name,
Ms.
please, so
Watson.
we can take the register?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, all. How are we doing today?
Very interesting day. You're doing great.
Okay, good. Good. Glad that you had a productive week. Who is Tyler? I'm not certain who Tyler is. And then B Dean. This only our third week now, Miss. If Miss Bullidian had you before, Miss Bullidian, so you knew to put on this register. So could you please just hover over your name and put your full government name, so we could put you down on the register, please. Okay, guys, so it's 6 o'clock and it's being recorded. Bria was just keeping me awake till y'all got here. So welcome. So much has been happening all week in the news. I am sure this is going to be a lively debate. I wonder if I should ban FTX from the conversation.
No,
Completely,
leave that right there.
That's the hottest topic, eh?
The
That's
hardest
the
one.
hottest topic. Lord, I don't
That's
even
the
want to hear. I don't want to hear about FTX anymore. But okay, until the rest of the class gets in, let's hear. Who's getting their 5 points now for?
Let me start, Miss Bullet. Let me start.
Go
Hold
ahead,
on,
Kendrick.
I don't want to. I don't have anything to say about FTX. I just want to talk about one little article what I saw about the hotel deal falling through in Freeport. So I can start first, so everybody else, when they get into the FTX,
It can flow in. It can flow
Yeah.
in. Okay, Kendrick, because you're talking about FTX, right, Kendrick?
I talk about Bahamian politicians playing the race card related to FTX. I see
Oh,
who it was who said, "What do you mean?" in the WhatsApp group. I said, "Let's save that for later."
okay, so let's get the hotel out the way. Go ahead, Bria, with the hotel.
Yeah, I just saw a small article in the Tribune from I can't remember the first name, but Kay Evans. It was a pretty, I don't want to say ignorant, but it was definitely a biased, um,
Right up, eh?
yeah, it was definitely biased. It was pretty much, it was very negative. It was, if you weren't from Freeport and you were a potential investor, reading it would have been pretty discouraging. But it was kind of clear that the person don't really have much investment or business information to have been writing it in the first place. But anyway, he just but like I can't call him he, but the person just basically it was it was weird. It was just really saying that, oh, Grand Bahamians aren't shocked at all by this deal. We are cursed. I paraphrasing with the we're cursed, but
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know why. We weren't surprised. We expected this. Grand Bahama is not the place for an Atlantis type of resort. We'll always just be we'll always just be what we are now, just pretty much along those lines. And honestly, I just thought it was I just I guess I have to say ignorant now. I just thought it was ignorant because that is not what Grand Bahama used to be, and we just can't seem to find the resources to and the regulation and pretty much the institutions that are put in place to uplift the island when situations like hurricanes and pandemics happen. And I'm not even referencing Dorian at this point because the Port Authority has not been doing their job for the island since Francis and Jean. And in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement, sorry,
Mhm.
um, the government is somewhere in there where the government is able to hold them accountable for pretty much neglecting us, but still taking the profits from the business. So I just wanted to just say how ignorant it was and how false it is because Grand Bahama can be what it was before. We just need proper heads of places like the Port Authority. We need proper ministers in place, and the Ministry for Grand Bahama, formerly Office of the Prime Minister, they just need to do their job truthfully and wholly with our interests.
Okay, Bria, and thank God for education is what I'm going to say. Because anytime you read a book, an article, any piece of writing, the first thing you want to find out is who the author is. And if you can get a little bit of their history, and it's just like watching CNN and Fox. Fox is heavily Republican, and so they'll bash the Democrats all day.
Right.
CNN is heavily Democrat, so they bash the Republicans all day. So it's good to know which sides these people are, so you see the biases and you know what to throw away and what to take it. And sometimes you can probably only take one paragraph, when these people are biased. So it's good that you are educated and you can see through the nonsense without running and saying, "Oh, this was in the paper, so this is gospel." Okay,
Right.
so very good, very good. You know better. It's good that you know better. And anybody who you discuss that article with, that, or maybe somebody from Nassau who may not be as knowledgeable about Freeport, and say, "Gee, you really think Freeport cursed?" You could further educate them.
Yeah.
So very good.
So
Very
pointed
good.
out in case anybody in there had seen it. I
Right.
just don't want people who have good influence, which will be people from Nassau, to be dissuaded from, investing in Freeport.
Correct. Correct. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay, Kendrick, tell us, and then Bria, like we keep saying, we need a complete wash. Y'all
Right.
are the future leaders. Forget about this I that's all I could say at this point. Forget about the PLP, forget about the F&M. We need an uprising of educated persons. Each
Honest
leader
person.
needs three persons behind them to support them, to do the legwork, to get the information, to help build them up to be a good leader. And then we are learning about ethics, and hopefully you brought some of that from home. You have some ethical foundation from home. Your mommy teach you the right thing, and we want to wash this F&M and PLP. That's how I feel at this
Yeah,
point.
I agree
That's the only
100%.
way we could save the country. So future leaders, peers, this is just the beginning. Continue on your journey, okay? So you can be educated and are knowledgeable in your positions. Okay, so very good. Kendrick,
Yes.
go ahead, Kendrick.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Uh, I was wondering if anybody was watching Eyewitness News last evening, relative to one of our local politicians alluding to, well, if this had happened to someone who didn't have nature's passport, what would be the outcome? And I was trying to wrap my head around it all day. And this was the Honorable Member of Parliament for Fox Hill. Did anybody see it?
No, but I saw in all these groups that people were bashing him left, right, and center. And
Because
yeah.
Ms. Willard, it came across as a traditional, let me see if I can deflect this and talk about what the words he used. Those who have nature's passport have so much more benefits. And I'm like, this is not
white privilege, right? He tried to say white privilege.
Yeah, but this is not the time for that. Okay? Because wasn't this groundbreaking occurred in April of this year?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, last time I checked, who was the government at that time?
The same government right now.
So why is it that you are referencing, you ain't saying the F&M or the coalition, it's now black and white, and I am tired of individuals, and instead of saying, listen, we messed up, it's something that happened, we couldn't control it. I often compare scenarios like this to a parent who would refuse to apologize to a child when they did something wrong. The only thing that you do is that child becomes infuriated and start to have a bitterness. And I think what's happening is that he did more damage to the Progressive Liberal Party by running on with that foolishness last evening than he did any good, because it had nothing to do. The young man showed up to the groundbreaking in a t-shirt and short pants. That's all you needed to know. That's
But
all you needed to know.
Kendrick, the Prime Minister was at a conference last month where he alluded to we were being chastised because we are Black. You know, and I can't even remember what it was about, but it was utter nonsense. So I think that's where
I often
Fred would have gotten that foolishness again from, because people were outraged when you know he said that. I forget what one of those are so many I can't keep up, but some conference he said that it's because we were Black. You remember
I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah,
when
United Nations
actually I
conference
thought
in
actually was saying
the Prime Minister said it, and I've often alluded back to the same Fox case, because I argued this point in another one of my classes, which I wouldn't say. I said, Bahamians need to stop looking through the milk box and start looking through the glass and calling what they see. I said, every time they try to distract, they put a milk box in front of our eyes and therefore think we cannot see. The foolishness that they do embarrass us internationally. Okay? This 40 for 40 with Ryan Binder running on with this report that's supposed to come out from FATF the end of the month, verifying that we should be fully compliant in regards to digital assets. They could basically write that off. Anybody saw that? I think it was in
Right.
somebody put it in the group.
right.
Somebody put it in the group. I
Right.
was like, that 40 for 40, wait, whatever you want to do with that, take that, put that in the trash and burn that. There ain't no way they're going to say that we are fully compliant. There is no way. That just went out of the window. We may get an extension, and depending on how this liquidation go, that's another matter to itself. How much percentage of these people from what assets remain is actually going to get, how much percentage money they're going to get back from their money?
But when they will get it back, Jesus, think about it. Remember now, Bahama filed for bankruptcy, how many years? From 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 8 years ago? Was that 2014?
Was it 214, 215?
Okay, right, but think about it, that's another 10 years in the making. And the thing about it is, like everybody is saying, there's been no official statement from the government. We don't know what funds have been invested and if, you know, how that's going to affect the economy, because I am almost 100% certain a lot of money, Bahamian dollars of people money was invested in FDS.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
You see who were the principals, right? You see who was the head of legal. Okay. So I'm certain.
Ms. Bullock, and also, I didn't even get to finish watch the rest of it, right? I saw that Shanique had Mr. Cotton on, right? And the whole thing is that they were referencing, and I'm back to Fred Mitchell, saying about the investors and the investors. I'm like, okay, if you are talking about the investors, you are the sitting government. This Lukaya deal that fell through, who did that start under? This particular deal. This administration, within 2-3 weeks, FTX, this administration, let's stop passing the buck. Understand that we have a significant problem in this country right now that could hinder us for a while. How are we going to change the narrative? This is where I say they don't have a clue as to what they're doing. They don't have a clue. Because when you start I know it's the art of war, but this is what we call the art of deception. Let me take your eyes from over here and try to put it over here. That's the shell game I think they're trying to play right now, and they're not going to be able to pull this over. I would say the individuals who are in this class and other individuals in the financial sector.
With Kendrick, as far as I am concerned, if this was America, FTX would have been too big to fail, and they would have had to get bailouts from the government.
Yeah.
Of course, we know. Of course, we know that our government can't bail anybody out.
They
Of
can't
course
bail
we know
themselves
that.
out.
We can, of course, we know that. So Kendrick, when it all boils down, really only poor people go to jail. Okay. And at the end of the day, if you look at all the news reports, they're saying that even though he may have lost some, what he was in April or July, they his valuation was 32 billion. At the end of the day, he's going to lose 31 billion, and he himself is going to be left with 1 billion. Okay. And so he's still going to be a billionaire. Everybody else who was under his portfolio will suffer. Okay. And let's just look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump has done bankruptcy, what, 13 times?
Yep.
Is he still not living a very comfortable, influential life? Okay, so only poor people is go to jail, Kendrick. And so the government is heavily involved here, and unless the SEC in the US get involved, I don't see much that they are going to do about it. They're not going to prosecute themselves. Okay?
Prosecute. That's a cute word.
Yeah. They're not going to prosecute themselves. So I don't know how they get out of this, but they haven't said anything. So obviously they're trying to find a way. Correct?
They're trying to play that shell game with us.
Okay. They can find a way. They can find a way because they are too big to fail. Too big to fail. So yeah. Okay. So very good. Very good. Anybody else with their newspaper?
Hi, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All is well. Now, listen, I just want to shed some light on this whole, debacle with this Fire Fest, and I know that's been in the news recent days. Obviously, we are aware of who would have came to this country some years ago and had a Fire Fest that basically, created a black eye to this country, and I think we're still trying to do repairs to that. And having said that, now it seems that he wants to come back, or is proposing to come back to the Bahamas again to, just do something else in our region. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think we need to entertain, persons such as this. And to be honest with you, I having read the newspaper, man, I sometimes feel so slighted as a young Bahamian, because it seems to me that all these foreign investors, they come to the Bahamas with all of this lucrative ideas and all this big money talk, but we always get and in a lack of a better word, the shitty end of the stick. I don't understand why we always doing this to ourselves as a country. I mean, everything rises on leadership. Everything, failure, success, everything rises on the shoulders of leadership. And I think our Bahamian government needs to take a more proactive approach in terms of who we are allowing into this country. I think we need to do a better vetting job. I think once we allow these persons to come into our country, I think we need to do, more, enhanced due diligence, so we could, not be in these type of precarious type of situations.
Well, Gerardo, you're so correct. Again, how are these people even allowed? You try to, just get like a peddler's permit to sell stuff on R&B Bailey Park, and you go through the ropes, and you have to bring your birth certificate and a pound of flesh to get that. But here it is, somebody who is supposedly still supposed to be in jail. He got 6 years. None of the vendors were paid. We not only got reputational risk, our Bahamian people lost a lot, all the money that they had invested to, try and make this a go for him. And now he can just go there and carelessly use the Bahamas again. Now, again, I was dismayed with the response. I thought immediately somebody should have stood up and said, this is impossible, and we can sue him for using the Bahamas name. Luckily, I think Chester Cooper said it yesterday. Okay, so I saw it in a newspaper article today where they said there's no way he will be allowed any permit to hold any type of what is it, treasure hunt or anything in the Bahamas, and he is to refrain from using the Bahamas name. So that's good. But he got 6 years, and it seems, I guess, I don't know, in U.S. jail it's only 9 months or something like that, because he's out
I
of
think
jail,
it
and
is
that
this
would
one.
only been 4 years he would have spent. So yeah, but a lot of the vendors
That's
from
fast time.
sorry.
That's federal time.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he would have spent, yeah, like 4 years, and now he is out, and a lot of the vendors are still hurting. They still had a very big loss. I think one vendor lost $200,000, which she borrowed. So yeah, it would have been very callous if the government had allowed him to come back in and do anything here in the Bahamas, and cause more reputational risk. Okay, so good. Follow it, and let's make sure that nobody lets him slip through the cracks, and these are the things that we have to advocate for. The left, right, and center. These investors, somebody in doing proper due diligence, right? Somebody in checking them, or monitoring them to make sure that they are doing what they ought to do. Um, but yeah, just as far as FTX made all that money, they lost it, and um, I'm very surprised with such a new bill, the DARE bill or the DARE Act, and amendments that already there are so many issues, or or what can I say? There are so many missteps in that bill. I'm very surprised. Go ahead, Eddie.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, well, when I was growing up, my Grammy, she used to tell me, son, use a prophet, use a prophet, and you don't know it. I used to like, okay. She always called me a prophet. And lo and behold, just this week, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I said, this whole situation was happening with FTX. It's like Fire Festival 2.0. And lo and behold, a day later, here comes the story of Billy McFarlane talking about he coming back here to set up another event. It was like almost like, and the person called me back and say, and we was just talking about this yesterday, and here a day later, Billy McFarlane all of a sudden comes out the woodworks, and then it just goes to show, bad. I mean, I think talk about reputational risk. I think the events that has been happening to us over the past few years, man, is making us the laughing stock of the world. Here it is now. We have this whole, we were touting this whole FTX and setting up the Bahamas as a hub for fintech and for crypto and all of that. And here it is now. We are the ones now left holding the bag, looking stupid. And this year piggybacks off my article I read just today in the business section of the Tribune, talking about how we were on track to get the 40 out of 40 recommendations to be compliant, or to be held compliant or largely compliant. I don't know if I was aware that it was only two out of the recommendations. I think it's recommendation 8 and 15 that deals with nonprofits and virtual asset businesses that we were deficient in. And we were just looking at getting reassessed and hopefully to be compliant with all 40. Now here comes this big disaster that is happening now, and now pretty much now it taking us back to square one, where we won't be able to be that few on the list of few countries who are compliant with all 40, or compliant or largely compliant with the 40 recommendations. And so this just goes to show, man, that we in the Bahamas, we really need to take some things serious. I think piggybacking off what I think Gerardo was saying about this whole how we treat politicians. Politicians got to learn, not to just any white person. Let me not say white person. Any investor who comes here with a a briefcase and a dream. They just roll out the red carpet. When we have Bahamians who've been here, who have solid ideas and who have dreams and ideas that could revolutionize the economy of the Bahamas and put us on the map, but we tend to throw them aside and just any investor, and then just just reading the stories and seeing all the different rumors that is being going on, it's just like this. I think that this is going to take another few years for us to really, for people, because now when you think about Bahamas, now you talk about reputational risk, everybody could be laughing at us like, no man, we ain't even come to the Bahamas where we have all this, because it make it seem that we're a banana republic once you come here and you get cool with the politician and that's it. And I also found out today, I don't know how true it is, but I understand that at the groundbreaking ceremony, the regulator was there. So I don't know how true it is, but how could you be a regulator who's supposed to be policing the industry or to be at a groundbreaking ceremony of FTX? So so that shows you what type of country we are portraying to be to the world,
Right, and that's the second time for the regulator. I think she would have sat on a board with who was it? Oh, Edison Sumner, who had just been banned from the Securities Commission for 10 years for, again, a cryptocurrency account where let's say they would have opened an account to Scotiabank, and Scotia was supposed to be receiving deposits for cryptocurrency. They allowed the people to go buy a Mercedes and travel to Disney World and all sorts of stuff. So, there was public outcry. How are you sitting on, I think it was the disaster recovery board after Dorian. How are you allowing Edison Sumner, who just was charged and misappropriated the people's money, to sit on this board with you? You should be saying proper due diligence wasn't carried out, and the fact that he has just been banned a year ago, he should not hold any title or any position. But nothing was said. They swept that under the rug, right? And another thing we got to look at, Eddie, is our corruption perception index. Remember, Puerto Rico, after Hurricane Maria hit them, Donald Trump did not give them support. They were out of electricity for many, many months. And so the international regulators felt that the mayor of Puerto Rico was desperate, and she would take money from drug dealers and money launderers. And so they just dropped them, their corruption perception index. There was like no rating, because I remember trying to approve a bank out of Puerto Rico. That was in 2018. They had been de-risked. They didn't have correspondent banks. All sorts of stuff was happening. And I said, but there's no corruption perception index. And so I tried to tell them, it used to be 61. However, after Hurricane Maria, there's no rating. And our policy was, we do not do business with countries that have a corruption perception index less than 30. So I said, so if you could prove to me what the corruption perception index is for Puerto Rico, then I can approve this account. Other than that, I can't. Okay, so with all these incidences, there was the investors out of Cat Island the other day who, when they did the due diligence, the man was out on bail or something like that, had a very bad history. This is like the 4th or the 5th rodeo. And so I'm certain that internationally, this is going to affect us in some way. And especially, like I say, when we find out exactly how much of the people's money is invested in FTX. Okay, so let's watch. I think currently we stand at 63. So let's see if next year or so, or anything will happen. Let's just see how it pans out. Okay, Ashley.
Hi, good night, everyone.
Good night.
I came across the article of Stephen Delabo, who is, I guess, supposed to be a well-known blockchain or crypto specialist in the Bahamas. I know he's done like a lot of podcasts and stuff and other social media platforms speaking on cryptocurrency. And he was basically saying that, I guess in a way, this could not have been avoided, I guess, by regulation, because cryptocurrency is a decentralized, well, FTX is a decentralized organization. There's no like central banks or for them to kind of answer to. So I don't know if, I was just wondering like how, I was trying to track back to think if this could have been avoided on the whole.
No,
Right.
I don't agree that they are decentralized, because they do reporting to the Securities Commission under the DARE bill, under the DARE Act, and they have I think a digital asset license. Okay, so the Securities Commission is the gatekeeper. Okay, and there are two types of exchanges. There are regulated exchanges, where the exchange is required to get your KYC, your passport, your proof of address, and what have you. And if should there be an issue, and I think that's what Alameda was going to be the exchange for the regular FTX, where they would be responsible to get all the KYC and verify these persons, right? And then there's unregulated exchange, where everybody just has a number, and people are always hacking into that number. It could be Ashley Stubbs and Bin Laden. The next number next you could be Bin Laden. So that's the unregulated exchange. And so yes, Securities Commission is the regulator, and so they are who they are supposed to report it to. And so all the KYC that is required, just for like a bank account, all the due diligence, the statutory requirements, all of that, they report it to the Securities Commission.
Because they were saying that even he felt as though even like the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission would have had a hard time as well to try and catch the potential breach. But also, back on what Eddie said, I'm wondering too why they chose the Bahamas for their headquarters location, because I don't know, it may be like our country's reputation, I guess, with such legal matters as say the Bahama incident or the Fire Festival incident. If you're thinking like in a criminal mindset, do you think they were like, oh, maybe these things we didn't hear much happening
the
or much
judicial system, if I was a con artist and I look at our judicial system, I would come here too. Yeah, I would. Because think about it, look at how everything is backlogged. We are known, our topic this semester is bribery and corruption. We know that everywhere you go is a tip. And if the entry level people are so comfortable taking these tips in these government office, what you think of it? That's them from the top, the fish rots from the top, right? So that means from the head, yeah. So we know that. We know for years our politicians just got a slap on the wrist, and there was so much corruption back and forth. In fact, I have a colleague that works for the Auditor's General office, and she said all the audits up to the roof. The last time the PLP was in power, $10 million was missing from PHA, nothing done. 600 from the post office, 6 million from road traffic, and on and on and on. And all of these audits are in, and the people who are responsible, clear as day, they sign it. It was only them who had access, they steal it, and nothing is done. And then what the PLP does is go get one of their cronies to say, we need an external audit because this is a witch hunt. So then they pay their cronies $400,000, $500,000 to do an external audit, and then still nothing is done. Okay, so people know this.
Right.
Yeah, people know this. So I would come here too. And then, like I said, cryptocurrency wise, we have a lot of educated persons. The educated ones are normally victimized, and the ones that turn the blind eye are the ones who are promoted to the highest position, And I had the story a few weeks ago where I said the good pastor from the youth pastor from the church on out east, he was fired from 3 banks for stealing. How did the Ministry of Finance hire him? How? only because the person in there who was already a thief didn't need a second signature. Okay, because an honest person can't get a job getting bombs. Right? How else?
Yes.
Three banks fired from for stealing, but the Ministry of Finance can hire you. My MP can give me a job. My good colleague who we could talk about in chapter 8, chapter 9, cooperation with the authorities, insider trading, this misappropriation, that misappropriation, and you get hired to the Ministry of Finance too. Now corruption and that drop. Come on. So yeah.
Ms.
Okay,
Bullard,
Ashley, thank you. Go ahead, Kendrick.
Thank
I know y'all hands up. Let me ask a question. You say a youth pastor?
Yes.
When was this? Couple of years back?
Yeah, like 2 years ago, just before
Okay.
the pandemic.
Okay.
Johnson or Thompson or Johnson is his name. You
Okay.
Google it. Google it. Okay, go ahead, Gerardo.
Hi, Ms. Bullard. I just want to expand a little bit on what um anyway, Eddie, sorry about that. Eddie was talking about. I like to share some experiences when I worked on the front line as an immigration officer. I told you from day one, I spent about 13 and a half years in service. And one of the things that really discouraged me as a young officer some years ago is I recall a time when I worked at LPIA and I was processing, a church. To find out that, he came to see a particular minister at the time. So I went through my whole spiel. Good morning, sir. What is the purpose of your visit in the country? And he tells me, oh, I'm here to pay your salary. I said, Jesus, God, guide my mouth because I wanted to say something else. And I'm just saying to myself, the audacity of this man. You could never go to U.S. Customs and even play around with a customs official like that. But nevertheless, I furthered the conversation. Like, okay, well, who are you meeting with? Because, as immigration officers, we usually get circulars in terms of who's coming to see who, so on, etc. Nevertheless, he said he was meeting with a particular minister, and he shared to make an investment in this country, and to give him his job, and this is one of the things that just makes me so freaking outraged. Everything around here is always about giving the Heyman's job. And guys, when we look at it, right, we're not getting the top executive. If we ain't wiping the glass or sweeping the entry or opening the door, or I'm saying to myself, listen, when are we gonna wake up as a nation? When are we gonna wake up as a nation? When we look at Ms. Bullitt, you said about a lot of money is being in government entities. We could even go back in the Ministry of Education. I think the police did a probe some years ago in the Ministry of Education, some $800,000. Nothing came out of it. Nothing came to fruition. But you know what is so funny? When I do apologize because I know we have some law enforcement in here. I'm not talking at you, but I'm just speaking to the entity. I'm talking about the system. We parade our young men, before the courts, and we do all type of wild things. But the brothers who coming in these nice, 3 and 4 piece suit, their leather briefcase and all this fancy cloth. Everything is a slap in the wrist, man. So I like I said before, I'm adamant about this. I really hope we get this country on a level where it's serious about, making our leaders accountable.
Okay, and Gerardo, and this is what I'm saying, I tell everybody, you need at least 5 revenue streams, okay? This 9 to 5 just ain't cut it. Nobody ever got rich from the 9 to 5. Then you need like-minded people. I always encourage if you hang out with a group of people on the weekends. There are 4 weekends each month. 1 month is to talk about initiatives in your country that need to fix, how to invest, how to make this money, how to network. Okay, please take your time and do that, and you will see in a few years it will pay off. We need a complete wash, and we don't want their children and their grandchildren to take over from them. And we see that they on the 3rd generation now. Okay, we need a complete wash, but we need an uprising. Look at America, where people feel that only Donald Trump can be president. My God, in America. So we don't want to have that same problem where we have the same players over and over again who have clogged up the system and not supported the people, but work to their best interests or for their family, their lovers, and their friends. Okay? So get your network together, get your revenue streams, and educate yourself and keep having these conversations. And then I always say, we sit down and we talk forever. Please put some of this talk into action. Ms. Bullet hate meetings, and I don't even go to meetings anymore because I said nothing is going to be done. Nobody takes minutes. Why I'm not coming? Okay. Please record and take minutes and action the things that you discuss. Stop sitting down and talking for hours. We need action. We need lobbyists. Okay, start to Google that. That's who holds your feet to the fire. That's who reminds you. Okay. All right. Very good. Priya?
Yeah, I just wanted about the FTX thing and why they actually came to the Bahamas. It is true they actually did come to the Bahamas because of pretty much the slackness. They were in Hong Kong, and I think Hong Kong was putting pressure on them to follow their regulations, and they run away because they they didn't want to follow it, and that's exactly how they get here. But speaking to what Gerardo was saying, at least they was paying some Bahamians decent. At least they one of the few companies that come here, said they was providing jobs, and then actually put the Bahamians on the same. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but Bria, guess what? You know why they were paying them? I had an interview about 2 or 3 years ago. I worked out life majority of my career to Royal Bank Trust.
Mhm.
So these people recommended me. Went on the interview. The first interview went well as a normal interview. Second interview, they said, okay, Miss Bullet, we want to hire you. We are going to pay you $100,000 a year. We give you the company car, we give you the cell phone, we give you a black card. We only need your signature. We need you because you can be approved as the MLRO, and we need you to just sign. Everything will be dealt with less in Singapore. So they are going to send you everything, and you are just going to sign and say you agree. And they said, and you can work from home, you whatever, your money will be to your account each month, blah, blah, blah. Any other benefits, healthcare for you and your children, blah, blah, whatever. Okay, I said, okay, so I'll get back to you. And I run out that place. Okay, I was so afraid.
I could imagine.
Okay, but some
What?
people.
That's 100,000. That's 100K. Miss Bullet.
Okay, Eddie, I should have done it for 2 weeks. I should have get at least one paycheck, right? And then report them, right? But I am just telling you, they are the type of they can pay you because they want you to feel like I have to keep this job. And Lord help you if you say you have a lot of children and a mortgage, you can't leave, right? And this is why I say get your 5 revenue in streams, because you do not want to compromise yourself when these people put the pressure on you. And like I said, I've been in my position one after I finished working the Royal Bank, the regulator had recommended me to keep a bank open. Okay. The same thing that FTX did is what he did. The chairman took $4 million of the people's money. Okay. And when central bank uses moral suasion, they called him in and said, please put the money back, sell your shares. He said, you can't tell me to sell my shares. So they took him to the Supreme Court, and immediately it was a warrant for his arrest. They took his shares from him and they deported him out of the country.
So they gave him the option to sell his shares at first.
Yeah. Because see, again, all of this causes reputational risk. And the central bank uses moral suasion. So they call you in, they invite you for tea, and they tell you, please leave. The Securities Commission has put out a warning and a notice and a do not do business with FTX. We did not, if that was central bank, he would not see all of that. They would have called Sam in and had a meeting with him privately. And then if he refused, then he would have been,
It
you
to the
know,
new-
the police would have dealt with it. But
Right.
central bank uses moral suasion. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, back to Gerardo. Gerardo, if you ever went to traffic court, not a seat in traffic court. If you ever went where the people who don't pay water and sewage in BC, small claims court, where all the banks have all the poor people, not a seat. Okay, we excellent. We excellent at traffic. We excellent at bringing poor people before the courts and taking $25 a week from them.
Hey, Ms.
Excellent.
Ballard,
But let somebody murder.
Ms. Ballard,
Let somebody murder or one of these politicians, we don't know what to do.
Ms. Ballard.
Hey, go
Hey,
ahead.
during my tenure in immigration, I was a former prosecutor, so I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Okay, not a seat, Gerardo, not a seat in those courts. That's how they fill every night. Every night is traffic court, every night is small claims court, not a seat.
And they're so happy to be doing this.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dean,
Oh.
go ahead, Ms. Dean.
I think Arawak Port is about to open up. That's what it is. I think they're about
Who's that?
Arawak Port. Arawak, what is it? I can't remember the name, but I think a subsidiary of theirs is about to open shares. I don't know if they're gonna invite their current shareholders of the port holdings company to buy shares in the operating company first and then open it to the public. But y'all could look out for that. I think they are gonna open it to the public after they.
You mean for the new port? For the new port?
It didn't really say the new port. It was
Say Arawak, the existing port?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's it is the port, the project downtown with the new, well, it's not a new port, but they
Yeah,
you know how they building that new terminal and all that downtown. I mean,
right, the cruise port.
expanding the cruise port, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
that's that.
Okay.
Okay.
Should be
in
a
the-
good investment. You need to pay
That in the business, that in the
192
business.
million back to the Chinese. And listen, ports around the world, China is known for lending money to these countries that can't afford it. Guatemala, before the pandemic went into default, they acquired their port. Couple African countries too, they acquired their ports. We don't need China acquiring our port now. We know that the US may help us, but only so much they can do. So yeah, we need as much vehemence to own the shares in that as possible.
Where it's being advertised? Is this on the papers or where?
Priya, you saw it in the paper?
No, we have shares in the port holding company, and they were inviting us to purchase in the operating company. So that's why I say I think they're gonna open it to the public after they I guess reach out to all of their or the majority of their current shareholders, and then they'll open it to see, I guess, to see how much they could get before they have to come to the public.
Okay.
I mean,
So y'all look out.
I always been looking to do something, because I had a friend of mine who invested in that, and she was telling me how the returns are. Now she didn't get her money back 10 times. So I looking for things for little opportunities like that. So
I'll definitely
let us know.
Yeah.
I got some of that crypto money. I got some of that crypto money saved up, so I got invest.
Eddie, your money time right up in there. Eddie, you are one of them, mate. The money is hey, everybody who called me to borrow money this week, I say, tell my money lock in FTX. I can't get it out.
Ms. Bull, I'm so mad right now when I hear how lavishly the FTX employees were living. I was like, man, where was I, man, when they was giving out all this money?
Some, not all.
I just find out about this.
The lady who was telling us about it last week, only some. And that only lasts for 6 months. So it only lasts for 6 months. The lady who used to work there was here last week, but I don't see her here this week. She was quite distraught. Okay, Ms. Dean. Go ahead, Ms. Dean. Yeah, and we'll end with Ms. Dean. So, then I see Kendrick, and then we'll go on to the chapter. Go ahead, Ms. Dean.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
night.
Still on this topic about FTX, the article that I was reading was talking about the Bahamas is how we were going to be upgraded to fully compliant in all 40 of the recommendations, where we fell short in recommendation 8 and 15, which dealing with nonprofits and digital assets. According to the article, it said that we were deficient. Where we fell short was that the Bahamas, there was an absence for us assessing risk in relation to identifying money laundering and terrorist financing risk. So as a result of that, we decided to upgrade the DARE Act, and other regulatory infrastructure was put in place. But my question is, after doing this so that we can become compliant in these 40 recommendations, where did we drop the ball? Like, did we not account for something like this with FTX happening, the risk associated with something like this? That's the question.
Ms. Dean, first of all, okay, we are still on a learning curve from the 2018 recommendations that say countries should assess their risk and put controls in place. So therefore, businesses should assess their risk and then put controls in place. Okay? And so imagine a DARE bill that came out in 2020 during a pandemic. So they're just in place. We just roll it out. FTX only been open 2 years. So if the regulators even risk rate them yet, they would now be high risk. But we would look at the portfolio and see who was in their portfolio to decide which percentage of your business was high, medium, or low risk. Well, of course, we know they have a lot of PEPs, right? And then it's cryptocurrency. So, okay, automatically they should have been risk rated high risk. But they just started 2 years ago. But that means the Securities Commission was supposed to go in every year and monitor them. So imagine an audit and an audit from the regulator. Okay, that is take like 3 months, nobody have time for that. All my staff knew, give us a chance to get our feet wet, to make some money, to train everybody, and then you come in and give some oversight and see if we're doing everything right or wrong. Okay, I'm certain if the Securities Commission had gone in and done a check, they would have seen they was doing a lot of stuff wrong. And then, of course, you get an audit plan up and running and then say, you better fix this, you fix that and fix that, But with such a high risk business, and it being so new, I just don't think the commission had the opportunity to go in there and see how it actually works. Because really, who write these laws? People who never work in the industry. They probably had a consultant here, a consultant there. But this whole crypto business being regulated is new, because regulation just means that Uncle Sam getting his tax. That's all that means. Okay? And so do they really truly understand how it works? No, they would go in, like I say, and for the first time, see that what they were doing, and then be reactive. Then say, oh no, we have to fix this, we have to fix it. But because they're being so new, the Securities Commission, they flop before the securities even reach in to give a check. Okay, and then apparently every 3 months you had to submit financials, and there are different requirements that this, if you have this license that the Securities Commission requires of you. And they just didn't get around to it. They were too new. 2 years, too new. That's where the ball dropped. And now, like I say, we always reactive. Now it's a good thing that this happened early. Now we could fix the laws, and now we could see the gaps, and that's how we learn. We ain't proactive. We don't look at other jurisdictions. We just wait till it happened, and then we say, okay, we must fix this now. Now, like I say, this is too much of money, too big to fail. So that's why we have a problem, because of the amount of money that was lost. Okay, that's what happened. Then still on a learning curve. By the time as we find, now we know what the risk is, right? And there's really no way, because like I say, when what Sam first, my CEO's, not the CEO, but the chairman's partner now came in and said, I want to borrow $250,000 and you can hold my share. So I said, so you can't do that, because if this bank fails, if you fail, you could go to Commonwealth Bank and get a loan with holding your shares, but that's double exposure. And he was like suggesting that I didn't need this job anymore and what have you. And then I wasn't there anymore. And so I understand that his partner got 250,000, he got 4 million. And somebody had to blow the whistle, and that's how he, was told to leave the country. So this is exactly what Sam has done, taken the people's money, the investors' money, and started a new company and pretend as if this was like his own money or some new money. Okay, you call it like an omnibus account. It's the same thing. It's not your money. And so whomever is his banker too should be in some problems, because when they did the transfer from FTX to Alameda, somebody should have blown the whistle, because his FTX account at the bank should say, this is for cryptocurrency and not to establish a new a company. You can't go take the people money and transfer it to a new company. I don't know what he told the bank. So a lot of people in trouble. Whoever wired out those funds have to prove that they didn't know, or they thought this was just a platform that they was trading on or something. But that wasn't his money to take and transfer to a second business. Christiana and then Kendrick.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so I wanted to speak about my article. Pharmacy is doing well on price control.
Who?
Now, pharmacy.
Pharmacy is, okay.
Yeah, pharmacy is doing good on price control. Okay, so I know we can remember, I think that was beginning of this month when the big pharmacies had closed. They wanted the government to change the price control deal. What was happening was the Davis administration wanted to decrease the markup, the price markup from 50 to 20%. And the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association was there. What they were saying was that if you bring it so low, the small pharmacies will have to close because it's very low. They wouldn't be making a profit. So now they came to an agreement where it's 35 to 40%. So yeah, everyone's happy now.
Okay, yeah, because again, they don't understand that a lot of these pharmacies already brought in this, inventory.
Correct.
And they were just
Yeah.
new or so. And why they on the pharmacy is, what about big super value who has not agreed and say they ain't changing no price, tell the law change. And they know the law could take another year to change or something that, affair. Why they not have the super value or AML foods?
I agree. I mean,
yeah,
that's another topic because
yeah, that's another debate. Okay, Kendrick, and then we'll go into the chapter.
Okay, Jess, I was looking, I forgot who it was. I see the headlines, Iowa court beats Q1 profits by 56%. I think that may have a lot to do with it in regards to them offering a new product per se, or new shares or so forth. That may have something to do with it. just a point of emphasis, or somebody's seen it, have you seen that BGRS is being offered more frequently in the last 6 weeks? Is that normal? Because I see that.
You mean the Bahamas registered stock?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it.
I've seen it at least 3 times since the beginning of October. You know, it closes like within 3-4 days, I think, right? Could it be? Anyway, we're recording, right?
Yeah.
Is the government in a satisfactory position?
Any comments?
I got asked that like that, right?
Yeah. I'll ask that offline.
I have to ask that
wouldn't know,
offline,
right?
because that poses some red flags for me. Why are you seeking all of this money this consistently when IPOs are not offered that frequently within that time span? Is everything okay? That's a question I want to ask. Anybody else has recognized that?
No, we have to talk about that offline. Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay, guys, very good. Everybody seems to be abreast. Lots of things going on, and again, important is to know who is writing these articles and what are their biases, and just make sure you get the correct information. Because we just take half of the story and it's spread like wildfire. But so very, very good. These will be the water cooler conversations that you have with the CEO and the executive team, and definitely when you get the opportunity to go to your civic organization, this is what we want to talk about. Not what type of shoes and who do our hair and what we get fish fry, okay? But current events, locally and internationally, okay? And so chapter 3, I hope some of you had the opportunity to read, and quite a number of you mentioned it tonight. Recommendation 8, okay, which was still deficient, right? And we needed to do some work around recommendation 8. And so little backtrack, I don't know if you all recall when George Bush was president, he signed into law the Uniting and Strengthening America by providing appropriate tools. They call it the tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act, and they call it the Patriot Act, okay? And the purpose of the Patriot Act was to fight foreign official corruption, foreign to the United States, that is, policing the operations of multinational financial institutions, and limiting the activities of offshore banking centers. So of course, the Bahamas is considered an offshore banking center. They expanded recommendation, I think it's 7 on and 7 and 5, 7 and 8 on terrorist financing. And that's when they added proliferation. So it used to just be AML and CFT or CTF because it's used interchangeably. And then they added PF on the end, which is proliferation of weapons. When George Bush was president, he constantly talked about weapons of mass destruction, right? And even though he didn't find any, Saddam Hussein was killed, and it was reported that due to these weapons of mass destruction or what have you, that's why he was killed. And so in intro, we heavily talked about terrorism. We know that there are many ways that terrorists finance their objectives. We know that they require financing, they need weapons, they train, they need safe havens. And so those recommendations were updated to ensure that the Bahamas isn't seen as an easy country to infiltrate. And of course, we know we have like 5 international airports where we have the San Salvador, Exuma, Eleuthera, Freeport, and Nassau. We want to ensure that no terrorists feel that is an easy go and would use the Bahamas to carry out any of their terrorist acts. Now, we do know that in 2001, when September 11 occurred, there was the two terrorists that landed in Freeport. However, they did not have the proper visas, and our immigration luckily was trained properly at that time and stopped them and turned them around, because we would have still been suffering reputational risk today had those terrorists been able to leave Freeport. And I think they purported to go into the White House or, some other major building. Okay, so of course, we updated our non-profit organizations act, because a lot of terrorism occurs around non-profits. So a lot of persons are sympathizers, or they are Muslims, and their beliefs are that, if you invest into terrorists or into whatever their ideologies are, they grew up just like how we grew up listening to T.D. Jakes and Billy Graham, and we are Christians, they are Muslims. And so many charities in the Middle East, filter money through these many terrorist organizations filter money to charities and non-profit organizations. So we needed to ensure that our non-profits were registered, and that the persons that are sitting on these boards are trained and can ensure that they recognize anybody who would make the donations to them. And I think it was 2019 when we updated the NPO law, and in 2020 or 2021, during the pandemic, many banks, after the law was updated, they gave a time frame on the books. They had, between all of the financial institutions, they had 384 charities on their books. And the law now required each of those charities to register with the Registrar General, fill out an application process, and list who their principals are, and send in KYC. And then I think the Attorney General office would approve this NPO application and then register you. And so I always look at, Bishop Lawrence rule. During that time, the banks had given all the NPOs a time frame in which they were to bring in their KYC, or they would close their account. Then the government stepped in and said any nonprofit that is operating without being registered could be fined $10,000. Okay, so let's just think back to 2021 and 2020 and Bishop Lawrence rule. He was operating, he was feeding persons every Wednesday. And had he not been registered, he would have been charged $10,000 a day for feeding those people. Okay, and so somebody stepped in and they assisted him, and created a foundation for him and got him registered. But let's think about if somebody did walk up to Bishop Lawrence Rule and offer him, take this $1 million, I just need to send me back 500,000. You keep the next 500,000. Do we think Bishop Lawrence Rule would say, I have to make sure you're not a terrorist, or would he see this as a sign from the Lord? Eddie? Eddie, you raise your hand?
Yes, actually, it also it is alleged that FTX also donated to a number of charities, and so
Yes.
herein
Yes.
lies the problem, because now when the provincial liquidator begins to claw back and go to the books and try to claw back, because everyone knows that the client
they are
funds
going to
were-
claw back. They are going to claw back assets, as well as the people who went and got their money from the back door. Remember, they said there was some accounting software that Sam had created,
Yeah,
and people were
but
made. That's what they are going to claw back. These
so what about
donations.
donations? So what
Yeah,
what of those
I-
donations
they-
represents client funds?
well,
Because
more than
we don't know
likely
whether,
it does, but I
Mhm.
don't think they can, like, that's like saying you're going back to BC and taking all the money for the electric bill. You can't do that. That already went off as an
no,
expense
no,
or a
but I
donation.
know
right?
you could also trace assets. Let's just say, for the purpose of if you could show that your assets were removed from the bank, right? They took it out of your account illegally and they donate it to a charity. That there, you didn't give permission for that, so you have the right to claw back those particular funds. So
Yeah, but
I see
go
the same
see
thing
if
happening.
go if you think Bishop Lawrence will have 1 penny left on that 50,000, you go back
No,
and
no,
find
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they
No,
didn't get
but
it,
I
but
don't
I'm
think
just
they
saying
can.
that
No,
Mhm.
operational and donations aside, anything that happened after November the 8th, I think that's where the clawback is going to take place. The legal withdrawals and any assets. I can't see them going out to anybody and saying, we made a donation to you, you need to return the funds. No.
Ms. Bullard, you sure about that?
I go do what I'm saying is, even if you are going to do it, who Kendrick, if somebody give you $50,000, you won't
Yeah.
use it. And they give that to you in June, and then they go bankrupt and they say, Kendrick, we need the $50,000 back. Do you still have it?
Yeah, I give you back 400,000. No, because I'm listening to Eddie, and I'm trying to almost run a parallel with like how there was a run on FTX, right?
Right.
After CZ made his announcement that he's selling, right?
Right, they can't claw that back because that was before anything after the liquidation or anything after bankruptcy. And guess what? Some people might even win that too, because Lennox Payton is who the Securities Commission
He's a
appointed.
liquidator, right?
Yeah, and his son sits on the Securities Commission board, or he sits on the board. And so basically that's a conflict of interest right there. So that's not a technicality where those people could get their money back.
And also too, he represented Sam in the acquisition of a $2 million condo.
Okay,
his
then.
firm,
So thank you.
yeah, well, not him, but his firm represented
Right.
in the sale, and also a number of other sales in Albany.
Okay.
I believe that firm was getting, they did the work for that. So they made a lot of money from
Okay.
those sales. And
Yeah, so
now they are
how is he?
liquidator.
So people could use that. So the clawback is after you file for bankruptcy, or after the Securities Commission sent out their saying that they halt all withdrawals. The people who got it through the back door and anything after liquidation was announced, or anything after the Securities Commission said everything should halt, which would have been November 8th or 9th or 10th or whatever day. Anybody before that, the people who got their 6 billion, they straight. This don't have nothing to do with them. It's everybody who didn't get their money, who took it after the Securities Commission. That's who they clawing back, and that's who they will take to jail, and that's who they say don't go to America if you move your money off that exchange after Securities Commission made that announcement. Okay, that's what's wrong. But anything prior, any expenses, stuff like that, no. I don't think so.
Ms. Bullard.
But who knows? We'll see. Yes.
Eddie, say it again for me, please. This particular liquidator has benefited monetarily in rendering services for
A few times.
individual involved in whose company it is, and we don't see that there's something seriously, I give up.
But this is why I'm saying, watch our corruption perception index.
Pirates
Okay?
expelled, commerce restored.
Watch it. It's at what, 63 or 64 now. Watch
Hold
it.
on, that's Woods Rogers you just quoted?
Yeah, pirates expelled, commerce restored.
They only change clothes. They only change clothes. The pirates never left.
Read your
Yeah,
history,
yeah.
Kendrick. Read your history.
No, but that is the serious cover. We're just now, we don't know specifically what attorney represented in the sale, but the fact is, it's his firm. And if he's the one of the partners who's the beneficial owners of the firm, he benefited from that. You know what I mean? So because how it is with the law firms, you know, they would have the partner and they would have they would normally let like the associates handle the sale or whatever. But ultimately at the end of the year, the profits, they are the they if they are partners, they are the ones who want to share in the profit. So ultimately, him as a partner of the firm, if his firm represented FTX CEO in those sales, and I'm sure subsequently they probably represented them for those Albany sales as well too, which is said to be $74 million. And if you look at how much they charge, I think it's about 2% or something like that of the sale.
2.5%. Yep.
2.5% of the sale. So you do the maths, and on top of that, their legal fees on top of that. So you do the math. So they made millions between 2020 and 2022. They made millions of dollars in these sales. And then now here it is. Now he's a potential liquidator. That is to see that never should have happened.
Okay, so Eddie, this is how nothing is going to be clawed back, because that's a conflict of interest right there, where these people will be on a technicality, or the politicians who just take their money off the exchange through the back door, because I'm sure it's only them. I sure know average Joe get their money back, right? That's how they go in on the technicality right there. These people are strategists. They know what they're doing. They know.
So at what point is the regulator gonna be held accountable?
When the international regulator gives, of course, you give your country the opportunity to do what they ought to do. And then internationally, people got to take over because you were seen as corrupt.
The Securities Commission, like, I feel like this is the second time in less than a year.
We don't want to say be assume alleged. It's alleged. It's alleged for you, Eddie. Alleged. It's alleged.
Anyways,
okay.
I think y'all know.
Okay, but recommendation. So do we see the risk? Do we think now that, okay, Bishop Lawrence Rule has been advised that his money can be clawed back, because it wasn't really FTX, Sam, it was the people's money who invested with him. And so really he shouldn't have been donating it anywhere. Okay, does Bishop Lawrence Rule even understand it today? Yes or no? Anybody? Does he understand it?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, and does he have any money to give back?
You gotta find it.
Okay, no, he ain't gotta find it. Y'all leave the bishop alone. He's doing a good thing. Y'all just caught him up in y'all mess. Okay, but I just wanna show you how terrorists can use charities, to misuse funds or to transfer funds or to carry out their objectives. Okay.
Ms. Bullard, can I ask a question? Okay, in a scenario like that, he would then be almost viewed as, even though he's an NPO, because he took a portion of it and then he sent another portion. Is that the scenario that you gave?
No. He took a portion of it whilst the guy was legitimate. Remember, a risk assessment is only as good as the day it's done. When he gave that money, he was a law-abiding citizen. Today, he is still a law. They say you're innocent until proven guilty, right? We're common law. Civil law says guilty until proven innocent, right? So he took the money and did not know that there was no risk associated with the time he received the money. So I don't even see how he would be. This has nothing to do with him or any charity that got money from them. Okay, because this guy is like a Robin Hood. He said he's trying to make all this money to give it away, to stop hunger, to feed people all around the world. Okay, so he believes in taking from the rich to give to the poor.
Ms.
Okay, but
Bullen,
I want you to understand how terrorists do it. Go ahead, Gerardo.
and then another thing to note is, back to Bishop. Bishop took that money in good faith. I think he's tried, proven, and tested in his country. His resume speaks for itself. I don't. There's in the criminal world, there's a nexus, and I don't think there's any nexus that's associated with the good bishop other than doing what the Lord has commanded. Feeding the poor, so on, etc. So that's my 5 cents.
Right, right. And like you said, he took it in good faith, whether he's educated or not educated. But again, this is what they are saying. If you are registered as a nonprofit, you are to be aware and ensure that you are aware of all the risks associated with people making donations. Many times there are terrorists and money launderers trying to wash the money. Just make sure that there's no washing of the money. There's no, I can give you this million and you send me 50,000 or you wire this place or the next place. Okay, so
The mule then.
Sorry.
He would then be considered a mule, unaware of what's happening, but he would just be as guilty.
Right, right. And so, like, when you sit on these boards, you have to have educated persons who are aware of anti-money laundering laws. Okay? Because legitimately, he took it in good faith. Okay? And at that time, there was no reputational risk or he was innocent at the time. So now, if he takes money from him tomorrow, now that's questionable. Okay? Well, what does the Bible say? What is stored up for the righteous? Hey,
Riches of the wicked.
Wicked.
okay.
Riches of the wicked.
Yeah, there you go. It's stored up for the righteous. So, I know a lot of people who is just donated to the church. Okay. All right. So we understand the MPO. We see the net effect that if they did not register because of international law, the 40 recommendations, they put in Bahamian law, an innocent person, Bishop Lawrence Ulu, was just feeding the poor during the pandemic would have been charged $10,000 a day. And of course, people had lashed out at the government saying, my God, he actually helping y'all, and y'all are charging $10,000. Sam Bankman-Fried is exactly why. Yes, you have to get registered. We need your KYC. We need you to know that you will be held accountable if any type of sending money back and forth occurs through your NPO. Okay, so it says the most significant. Yes,
you said they would charge him $10,000 a day.
Yeah, every day that he continued to be a charity. Every day he cooked he cooked every Wednesday, feeding the public. And so they told him, until you are registered, please discontinue that, or because the law is now in effect. Like they gave them like a year to get their books. The banks had threatened to close out their accounts if they didn't get a registration from the registrar general. Okay, so they gave them a good time frame, but again, we was trying to make this 40-40 list, right?
Right.
And so this is why it was staggered so long, because many of the NPOs, they didn't, like I say, have the educational level or anybody to help them. It was a pandemic. This was when they was most needed. You couldn't like shut them down, but we had international pressure on us. So there was nothing we could do after the time frame had run out. Gerardo?
Ms. Buller, let me ask you something. This is a lot of good information. I wanted to ask you, given what you said tonight, back to these end, right? Were the same measures taken with respect to Dorian? Because there was a lot of things, that were donated, to Abaco and Abaconians. However, we as Bahamians, we live here. A lot of those things donated were never, fruition.
Okay, so a lot of stuff happened this around the same time with head notes. Okay, so that's why we got some increased pressure as well, because GoFundMe is only for Americans or Canadians because Uncle Sam has to get his piece of the pie again. And so Head knows the lady who was Head, Leah Head, she had moved to Orlando and she had applied for citizenship or whatever, but it had not been approved. And so during Hurricane Joaquin, they had attracted $1 million in donations. And so for that amount, the US government then started to investigate them to find out that the Bahamas laws were not up to date and that this was a Bahamian citizen. So they blocked the account. In fact, I think that money is still on hold. And so with the international pressure, with the media focusing on this $1 million from Hurricane Joaquin, they fast track the law and then they fast track approving head rules so that we didn't suffer further reputational risk. So that $1 million is still on hold. Then we ended up having Joaquin and Matthew and Maria and then Dorian. And so all those hurricanes were really bad. And each time a lot of stuff was collected and just, again, there was no regulation. Now they are regulated, okay? And so we can't do anything about the past. We head knows ended up falling apart, suing each other. So now the truth coming out as to whether or not they misappropriated the stuff. But I know the Gina Knowles girl did give out a lot of stuff here locally in the Bahamas. I don't know what the head girl did because she lives in Orlando. And so they are caught up in that fiasco. I don't think that has been satisfied. And this $1 million is still being held by GoFundMe. And so it can't happen again. Remember now, around the world, all these laws, all the countries were deficient in 40 recommendations. The laws were updated in 2018. We still on a learning curve because like the credit unions didn't believe they had to do these things because they got away with it for 20 and 30 years. They had these regulatory bodies where when they came in and tell them to do something, they never looked back. Even when I worked at Royal Bank for 16 years, I saw central bank once every 6 years. And I didn't take them seriously because I said, they're coming back in 6 years. Yeah, we could do that. We could fix things one by one. However, after 2018, each regular now has an analytics department. These people ain't playing, okay? They training, but every day there's call. I don't know, Miss Bullet this, Miss Bullet. Every time I send something that's incorrect, they call me back the next day. Okay, so we have had to get rid of all them bad habits. We've had to train people. People still don't believe they have to do these things. Okay, and industry is like the law firms, the accounting firms, and the real estates, they just got on this in 2019. And then the insurance, general insurance just got on it in 2022. So yeah, work in progress of following these 40 recommendations. Okay, but internationally, we are seen as law-abiding citizens because nobody had been prosecuted, you know, because money laundering wasn't even on our books. So immediately too, thank God Bethel was the Attorney General. He said 86 people have been charged. And then they started digging up old cases. But that didn't make sense because none of the laws were retroactive. So you saw people like Michelle Reckley, who, you know, defrauded urban renewal back allegedly in 2016. Started off with 59 charges. Now she down to 19. And I show under the PLP, the whole case could get thrown away.
Also, from what I've read with her case, is the reason why they keep delaying is because no magistrates want to take it. Every time that's why they keep getting adjourned, because I think the last, and I think 2 of the magistrates recused themselves, and I don't think the other magistrates want to take it on.
Right, because
eventually,
every politician has been let go, Eddie. We just made a mockery of ourselves and the PhD and Gibson. They just let Hiram go again. I mean, come on. So, you know, if the coming in here in 2020 to help the FIU prosecute some of these people. They didn't come because of the pandemic. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to the Patriot Act. Okay. So U.S. banks must take reasonable steps to identify the beneficial owners of the accounts where they are foreign persons. And so in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank and says, I want to make a deposit or send a wire. Everything is done by email. And so we transfer everything by wire. So which means that you either have a US correspondent bank or a European correspondent bank, right? And so these banks that send wires on our behalf must identify who are the shareholders, who are the owners, whose funds will be transferred back and forth. Okay, and so what the Patriot Act does is they allow U.S. banks to, you know, ask us exactly for, you know, for the KYC. You would see sometimes we send wires and they come back and they say, what is the purpose of this wire? Send us a copy of the agreement. Sometimes it's to purchase shares or to buy supplies from Canada or from China. And we have to send all that information into them if they request it. Okay. It says that the jurisdiction of U.S. courts extends over any person committing no offense involving a financial transaction that occurs in the USA. U.S. banks must apply enhanced due diligence for foreign private banking customers and international corresponding banking relationships with offshore banks. So that means if Royal Bank has an account with JP Morgan, enhanced due diligence means that we must be marked as high risk. Okay, if we have it with Wells Fargo, we must be considered a high risk account. Okay, and then they says is the extraterritorial criminal jurisdiction of the U.S. in the Patriot Act has severe consequences for institutions and employees outside the U.S. So a lot of times, persons say, well, the U.S. can, you know, impose their laws on us. But what they did is they created their corresponding banking or their SWIFT system to go through the Fed. And so every single wire that goes through a U.S. correspondent bank at some point hits the Fed. Okay. And once you hit the Fed, this extraterritorial of the Patriot Act allows the U.S. to charge, to seize funds in a U.S. account. This means that if a foreign bank has an interbank account in the U.S. with a covered financial institution, the funds shall be deemed to have been deposited into the interbank account in the U.S. and any restraining order, seizure warrant, or arrest warrant regarding the funds may serve on the financial institution and funds in the interbank account up to the value of the funds deposited in the account at the foreign bank. So what happens is, because let's think of the Royal Bank of Canada, we have an account with Wells Fargo or with Chase. Every night we have to have enough money to cover all those wires going back and forth, and sometimes it's up to 8-9 million. Plus they have a minimum requirement, like how banks always say you have to leave $500 on the account to get interest. They'll think about these corresponding banking accounts. For large institutions, they say you have to leave $1 million. So you have to put $6,000 there for your wires going back and forth. Plus you have to have $1 million balance at the end of the night. And if you don't have that $1 million balance, they have overdraft fees. And those overdraft fees are like $5,000 and $10,000. So you would see like a lot of treasury departments and a lot of persons that work in treasury, they need to know all the branches. Royal Bank had 16 branches back in my day, or 13 branches. And so all the branches that sent wires, treasury had to know to make sure that their correspondent banks in the US had sufficient money at night for all those wires to go through. Okay, so Section 319 of the Patriot Act allows the US courts to seize those funds if one, just one, was related to terrorism or money laundering. Okay, so of course, you know, no bank wants that to happen because that would affect all of their customers. Okay, and they said there have been cases where they have subpoenaed officers of foreign banks on the entrance into the US, and we can look at the Julius Baer case. Julius Baer, I think, just closed down 2 years ago. They were found to be money laundering and tax evasion for some Venezuelan accounts. They were basically, you know, the interest, not the interest rate, but the currency rate drops and it goes up in Venezuela. And so they were manipulating the system. They stole a lot of money from Venezuelan accounts. And so there were 3 salespersons who resigned from Julius Baer. And I can't remember the bank they were going to, but they were going to another local bank. And so they were all over the news saying that they left Julius Baer to go to another bank. One of the guys who was supposed to be the CEO decided that he was going to go on a vacation before they started their new job. When he went through US Customs, they arrested him right under this with the section 3.19, and they prosecuted him, and he spilled his guts, and so he got 10 years as a part of his plea deal. The entire Julius Baer closed down. I think about 50 employees went home, and he implicated 3 or 4 other banks right here in the Bahamas. Are we aware of that case?
News to me.
Okay, so you could Google Julius Baer.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, and you'll see exactly what happened. Okay, and so
And he had to pay
that's the
million.
sorry.
I said, and he had to pay about 79 million. I think he agreed to pay more. The Julius Bank.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they couldn't sustain that, and so they just shut down. Okay, and so the book goes on to talk about the US dollar. The US dollar also is considered extraterritorial. That means that I think in 195 countries across the world, they accept US dollar. So most of them have a US reserve. And so under some parts of the act too, once you accept that US dollar, they can seize funds or you know, subpoena or come into your country and request extradition or what have you.
Well,
Okay, and yes.
well, it sounds to me like the US had a plan. They were very you know, they were very intentional about this act.
Right, well, I guess from all the drug cases where they saw that if they didn't, you know, countries didn't extradite, nothing would have happened to these drug dealers for years. They, you know, they put this in effect, and you got to remember now that George Bush Sr. was already president, and he only had 1 term, and he only had 1 term because of the war in the Gulf. So he had an agenda. He trained his son to you know, carry out all the things that he wasn't able to do, and he did this some 15 years later. You know, so I paid attention to my grandma used to watch Saddam all day, and you know, she used to be like, wonder what Saddam doing today. And so I grew up being fascinated with Saddam, and you know, I paid close attention to it and this act and these weapons of mass destruction and stuff. And so I don't believe, you know, Saddam had to die. I think it was a payback, you know, for his father, you know, only having 1 term. But yeah, so they had this plan for years on, you know, how to set up the Fed, how to get the SWIFT system going, and how to get everybody to buy into it so that they could have this power. There is, when you go to apply for a correspondent banking account, we talked about the international regulator, the Wolfsburg Group. The Wolfsburg Group is the 30th largest banks around the world, which are Chase, Wells Fargo, Deutsche Bank, and they have all sorts of principles that you have to follow. And so it's very strategic how they set it up. And if you want to go and open up a correspondent banking account, and like I said, if you in the offshore world, nobody's walking into the bank, so you have to have a wiring system. And so they strategically set this up, and you have to fill out a form from the Wolfsburg Group that asks you, are you aware of the U.S. Patriot Act? Are you a foreign jurisdiction to the U.S.? And once you put yes, if you put no, that you're not aware of the U.S. Patriot Act and Section 319 that allows us to come in and see us, they don't open that account for you. So you have to say that you are aware, and you have to say that, yes, you know that the U.S. can come in and see us, or you just don't have a U.S. correspondent bank. Okay, and then it doesn't make sense to have your account because you can't transfer money nowhere. So we have US correspondent banks as well as European correspondent banks. And once the US had blocked like Russia and Cuba and stuff like that, we sent funds through the European correspondent bank. And so the international regulators knew that for years, and that's when they came up with the CPI index. They said, okay, you want to circumvent the US and the Fed? We don't do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. And of course, all the Russia, the Cuba, all of them fell under 30. So that was the next way to block them out. Okay, which is going to take us into our next topic of sanctions. Because the book just talks about the proliferation of weapons and what it is. And we, of course, know, like I already said, that's where it came about when George Bush continuously talked about weapons of mass destruction. Nothing was found. He killed Saddam. So, they updated the law to make sure that something came out of it. Okay. But this is more suited like for Iran and South Korea or North Korea. Yeah. Okay. And my experience with the weapons proliferation is that we had an account for the US Army. And it says an act providing funds for financial services which are used in whole or in part for manufacture, acquisition, possession, development, export, stockpiling of US nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. Of course, we know we have ORTEC right there in Andros. And the US is saying we have 2,000 atomic bombs. China then says we have 8. Okay, so 2008, I am certain some of them right there in the waters in Andros. So we open up this account. But when the laws changed in 2018, we had to add to our anti-money laundering manual, because the regulators checked this, that we would not do business anybody financing weapons, or proliferation. We had to add that because they gave us an audit note. We had the US Army on our books. We opened the account. It was no problem. The person from the US Army went and spoke to the Israeli Army. So the Israeli Army then approached us and wanted to open an account for us. And it was not approved. Okay. So people, asked, this was a concern for the board. How did you approve the US Army, but not the Israeli Army or any other army? Because all of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others, correct? Okay, but of course we blame it on risk appetite. Right? You all there or you all asleep?
I'm here, we are.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
just so you would understand. So it's okay for some, but not okay for the rest. Just so you know. Okay, any questions so far? We good? Because you all sound like you're falling asleep on me.
Good.
No, okay. Okay, so let's talk about sanctions. The very easy question to answer on the final exam, and if once you just understand it. And so the book goes on to talk about compliance with the sanctions regime. So prior to 2018, before Donald Trump, sanctions were not volatile at all. Like Cuba was sanctioned, North Korea was sanctioned, Iran was sanctioned, and parts of Russia was sanctioned, and that was it. And we didn't have any problem with sanctions. But after Donald Trump and he, started talking with Putin and Kim Jong-un, the world focused on sanctions. And so, of course, in the 40 recommendations, sanctions laws had to be updated and to make sure that countries were aware. So in the institutions, we have the regulators like the Securities Commission. They send out lists every month, and they say, please check your portfolio and tell us if you have any of these persons on your portfolio. And I'm going to show you, I'm trying to bring it up on my screen just so you would see how it look. So, once the regulator sends this out, you are to respond to them immediately. They give you a deadline, and it says international obligations, economic and ancillary measures act. Okay, and that's just another word for sanctions. So if you see on the exam they ask you about international obligations, please don't say I don't know what it is. And so you click on these links and you would see the various sanction lists from the United Nations and what have you, and you would check the names and it would tell you, let's see if it's gonna go, it'll tell you exactly who is on the list. So this is the name. The first, this name, then this name, then Ahmad, and so all sorts of foreign names, right? And then there are what should I call it? Aliases. So you have to check that as well. Okay, and then you respond to them, because you would see that it'll tell you to please respond by a certain date if any of these persons are on your, okay, so they send it attached. Yeah, if any of these persons are on your portfolio, please advise the Securities Commission. And now the FIU has said to advise them as well. So they normally give you a few days. This came out on October 6th. And they say licensees are urged to regularly consult the website and see a copy. All inquiries could be commission. They normally give you a date where you must reply to them and let them know if these persons are on your books. And then if they don't send any every quarter, sorry?
This on the Securities Commission website?
Yeah, on the website.
What is it on?
Let me show you. Let me show you.
Let
me show you. I can pull it up right.
Yeah, I will see if Kendrick or Bernardo sanctioned.
Yeah, if they want the sanction this thing.
I actually might be.
Okay, so we to the Securities Commission website, and right here where it says latest news, right? It tells you everything right there, but it'll say under where are we? News and media releases. It normally tells you, let me see, okay, they don't have it under that. Publications. They normally have one under latest news. Okay, that's
go in the search bar and type sanction in the search bar. That's what I see some stuff come up. No, this ain't anything.
Okay, yeah, so right here, so it on the news,
Or news.
right? So this would actually be, this was when I think they sent out the sanction for Russia. And yeah, and so they listed all of these names. So you had to go to your, if you didn't do business with Russia, that was fine. But if you did do business with Russia, because they said there was $4 million worth of Russian assets in the Bahamas, you had to check each of these names to make sure none of those names was in your portfolio. And then you had to check all of these entities. And I think it's 99 entities that we had to check one by one, and then confirm to them. They have two forms, Form A and Form B, that you fill out and say, I confirm that none of these listed entities or persons are in our portfolio. Okay. So yeah, on the commission website now, if you only report to the central bank will then send out the same list or something similar, and you respond to them on their deadline and say exactly if these persons are on your book. Other than that, you only go out to the central bank yearly and confirm that my sanctions lists are current and up to date. Okay, to the Securities Commission, if that's your regulator, you go out to them quarterly or you get a fine. Okay, and then the FIU has contacted me and said, when you respond to the central bank or to the Securities Commission concerning your sanctions, please copy me as well. Okay, so let me just show you. You may say, if the US has Venezuela sanctioned, how come we don't have anybody sanctioned? We don't have, how come the Bahamas still does business? Because the Bahamas does not have Venezuela sanctions. The US and Canada have them sanctioned, right? And so we still have a big Venezuelan portfolio here. And so I'm trying to pull it up. See if the old website will come up. Okay, yeah, it comes up. So this is, I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a better website now, but I still go to this one, is easy. These are the sanctions under the Bahamas, okay? And as you can see, we don't have Venezuela sanction, right? And so that's why we do business. However, when we did business with Venezuela, we could not send any money to the Fed, or we could not send it to our US correspondent bank because it would be blocked, right? And so every we use to send a wire to a Venezuelan, because a lot of them live in the US and different parts of the world. We used our European correspondent bank. Okay. And so let's just look at the book talks about international community sanctions and embargoes are used for the following motives: to encourage a change in behavior of a target country or regime, to apply pressure on a target country or regime as an enforcement tool when international peace and security has been threatened. Okay, targeted sanctions refer to both sanctions and embargoes, which means that there's a targeted restriction focused on individual people or organizations. And of course, we saw the list of Russia. Those people and those organizations are sanctioned. Before this whole war with Ukraine, there was only there was some sanctions on like lumber and stuff like that out of Russia. If we look at the screen and we see Liberia, it says there's a travel ban, there's an arms embargo, there's an asset freeze, okay? And different, there are different categories. So the measures applied and targeted sanctions are embargoes on exporting or supplying arms and related material, travel bans, bans on exporting equipment, bans on import of raw material or goods from the sanctions target, or financial sanctions on individual and government bodies or associated companies. So like I said before, in Russia, I was able to pay school fees, I was able to pay salaries, but we could not buy lumber because there was a sanction on lumber. Okay, if we wanted to purchase that lumber, we had to go through the European correspondent bank to see if they would, allow it. In some cases, they block the transfer as well. So just so you can have a visual, we saw the one from Russia, the current one, but this is how, like I say, these are so old, they were never touched. You could see from back in the day when they were written and different names and people who would have been sanctioned. So if any of these people approach you, you check these names from these countries, and you know that then they're not allowed to do business in the Bahamas. But of course, like I say, we don't see Cuba on this, we don't see Venezuela on this. Okay, and let's see if we could look. I was trying to look at the travel ban on, is it Libya? Yeah. Okay, let's look at Libya. It just says there's a no-fly zone, and somewhere in here it should say no plane can land that came from Libya. Ban on Libyan flights. No aircraft registered in Libya, owned or operated by Libyan nationals or companies shall be permitted to take off from, land in, or overfly the Bahamas unless that flight has been approved in advance by the committee on the case of an emergency landing. Okay, so of course, the ban on Cuba from the US says the same thing. So what do Americans do? They fly here and then they go to Cuba, correct? Hello, you all there?
Yeah, I think that's what they do. I ain't too
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Right, right. And so they just fly to the nearest country where there's no ban, and that's how they circumvent it. Okay. All right, just so you can be aware of how it works. Okay, so very popular question, like I say.
Were you able to find that again?
What's that? The Securities Commission?
No, the ban on the flights, on the flights.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can go back. Okay, so you want to say Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Obligations, Bahamas, right? And then you go, they tell you all the countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Liberia, I can't pronounce that one, Sudan, Republic of Korea, and Libya. I go on, I click on Libya, and then this PDF came up, and that's where I saw it. Yeah.
All right. I'm speaking of this too. I was looking in the business license act also too. They also have a schedule of countries that they are banned from importing. No, sorry, that's the Customs Management Act. That's the Customs Management Act where they would ban certain materials. I noticed that they still have Kuwait on the list. I guess that's from the Gulf War, and they never updated it. So any material or certain materials that cannot be imported from Kuwait, I guess this work in cohesion with the sanctions list then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and like I said, most of the time we follow what America does, but of course we do business with Cuba, we do business with Venezuela, and they are sanctioned in America. Okay. All right, so like I said, very popular question asks you about targeted sanctions. It asks you about the categories, and then it asks you about a sanctions framework. And when we are sending all of these wires, you would see all these banks. If you look over where it says OFAC imposes aggressive financial penalties for breaches, and nothing happens. So when you send in these wires, you'll see that Lloyd's Bank, National Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC, all of these, they have major funds, and they just operating. They just allowed these sanctioned persons to transfer money, and they did nothing. And so if you work in the SWIFT system, you will see all of these fines, and you just have to click through them and say, okay, you obey up all these fines. And to me, it's a redundant process, because nothing is done. But if you work in correspondent banking, they ask you to have 2 trainings of anti-money laundering and terrorism per year, whereas everybody else has 1. Okay, so the law requires 2 trainings. Okay, so back to the categories. And there are 5 main categories of sanctions. It's counterterrorism. An example is resolution 748, resolution 883 on Libya, destruction of the Pan Am flight. Then there's conflict resolution, and there's Iran resolution 2231, protection of civilians. There's a resolution 1265 and a resolution 918 on Rwanda. Then there's a non-proliferation of weapons, global treaty 1970. And then there is democratization. There's a 940 resolution on Haiti. So if you answer this question, you would want to know the categories and then have one of those examples. So you can look up the various sanctions that I call off, okay? So it says a designated person or listed person or a sanctioned target is a person listed in a financial sanctions regime, UN Security Council resolution, EU regulation, domestic sanction regime. Financial sanctions may prohibit funding or performing financial services, prohibits anyone from dealing with the funds belonging to or owned or controlled by a designated person, to a designated individual or government. Okay, so it goes on to talk about OFAC, the Office of the Foreign Asset Control. And normally when we are onboarding clients, that's what we do. We go to OFAC, and as a part of our due diligence, we just put their name in. And this is how it looks. And this is how we do our sanctions check. Now, our wiring system also filters on various UN sanction lists and all these other sanction lists, but we put these names right here. If you put Terry Christie, let's see what happens. You know, we want somebody who should. Okay, so no search results. Let me see if we put. Well, of course he isn't sanctioned, but who do we know? Who is sanctioned? Let's see if we could get it. Any y'all there or y'all asleep?
Hold on, you need to check that again.
We here.
Yeah, but there's no sanction.
Count that again. Go back. Let's see you check that again.
What I checking again?
You gotta run that name again. What name that was?
Terry Christie. Terry Christie don't have no sanction.
Did you spell that correctly?
Yes, I did.
I think she spelled the Christie with a K.
Instead of C.
Yeah. Y'all know any Russian? I know a lot of Russian people are sanctioned. Y'all know Russian billionaires?
The oligarchs.
or something.
The oligarchs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could get one of those names off of our list. They just had the spell. Krill and Oleg, I know they're Pasca, DERPASKA. And that's another thing. The PASKIA. Let's see if I can get it to come up. Right, so this is okay, so he is on our sanctioned list and his name is not coming up. Let me see, DERIPASKA. DERI. And that's another thing. So you got to make sure you spell it properly or it doesn't come up. Okay, there we go. There we go. So I put in his name. He was just off of our list. He's number 3. I know all kind of Olegs. Okay, you see it? They're a pastor, Oleg, they're a pastor. And there it tells you from Ukraine, he's an individual, and this is what shows up. And so you would print this as your sanction check. And of course, you would not open this account for him because he has a hit against him. Okay. And a lot of times persons have hits against them for sanctions or world check, and they go to their lawyers and they get letters saying that, you know, they were just testifying in a case, or they was not fully related. And sometimes even compliance officers had to, you know, go to their lawyers and get letters and clear their names. Okay. So you would print this and put this on file, even if you did not open up the account for them. Okay. So just to
Sorry, Ms.
show you
Fuller.
I
I have a question. Is it possible for a false hit to occur?
Right. So in World Check and in these various screenings, they want a part match and an exact match, right? And so once you get a part match, people normally know that they're getting a hit, and so they tell you right up front that I have a legal matter where I'm testifying, and it has. I used to work at the Royal Bank, and we are being sued for tax evasion and what have you. And so I could give you a letter from my lawyer saying that it is not me who was the money launderer or who tax evaded or what have you. So yes, you do get a lot of false hits. And that's another problem with organizations have. 90% of the hits, 99% of the hits that you get are going to be false, but you still have to check. And so at the end of the night, you should have a system that scans everybody's name that in your portfolio. And sometimes you have 900 customers, right? And so hits come out left, right, and center. If you deal with Latin America, everybody named De Silva, Pedro, Ole, you know, these funny names, just like how there are Johnsons and Rhodes and in the Bahamas. So you end up with a whole list of people that you have to go and verify. And so the office does not like, or the institution does not like to pay, you know, for you to sit there all day and investigate people to prove that that ain't them. But you have no choice. And these systems are very expensive, and you have to pay for them because that one time that person is the money launderer or the terrorist financer. That's when you go to jail. That's when the whole company shuts down. So you have to do your checks. And you have to keep the due diligence that you searched up to prove that that indeed is not your customer. So I had a De Silva, and who was arrested, the same name. I had his passport, but the news didn't post his name. I mean, his age or date of birth. And I couldn't find it nowhere. So I was looking through all these cases all over Panama to find out if this was my customer. And I couldn't find it. And so what I did is I contacted IFIU, who was a part of the Eggman group, and they contacted the FIU in Panama to give me a copy of the passport and the date of birth of the person that they had arrested in Panama. That took about a month, and then I got it back, and I was able to prove that that was not my customer. But the whole time I had to have his account on hold. I had to watch it and, you know, make sure he didn't run off with all the money just in case it was him. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So we understand the categories, we understand OFAC and how it works. And then it goes on to talk about designing a compliance framework. A framework to comply with sanctions obligations should include the following: documented policies and procedures, including risk assessments, defining roles and responsibilities, raising awareness, communication and training, monitoring and screening systems against sanction lists, an escalation process for decision-making, reporting requirements, and then requirements for reviewing sanction-related processes. Okay, and then after that, all the manual and automated sanctions processes should be subjected to quality assurance, assurance that the investigation was completed in a timely manner, assurance that the quality of the investigation is sufficient, and then if you're not keeping any records, if I just said that that was not our customer, based on what Ms. Bullitt, remember Ms. Bullitt don't work there no more, and we open up the file, how we know? So you have to make sure that proper audit trail was left and proper documentation. So assurance that the audit trail is documented and sufficient, thorough and continuous interrogation of results, assurance that escalation processes are in line with the business as usual practices. When I said I cannot open the account for Israel, they wanted to know, they said that they didn't even want to talk to the CEO, they wanted to talk to the board. Luckily, we had said Israel was not in our risk appetite. Okay, but we couldn't say, we ain't opening no, they're the biggest arms dealer in the world. We don't want no reputational risk from that, you know. So quality assurance is conducted on investigations undertaken by new journalists. So normally, you know, this onboarding, there's an onboarding team, new junior persons maybe checking OFAC and checking work check. You want to make sure they know what to look out for. Okay. And
so Ms. Bullitt,
any questions?
That particular website that you went to, that's press.un.org, right?
Which one?
I think that's the international one. That's press.un.org, right?
The OFAC one or the one that I click on from the Securities Commission?
I think that's the one from the Securities Commission. You would find all of the relative sanctions there as well, right? The countries.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, so I just put sanctions in the, it's under their news, and that's where they would send it. And that's the actual sanction, but the letter, what they sent out, the letter is here. So, you know, it comes to the registrants, whoever the MLRO is would get this for the company, you see? And so this is the one, this is United Nations press release. This is what you're asking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll look at that, yeah.
Yeah, so they are, so you would have to go and check all of these websites. Okay, but rather than click on, because it used to be like you check all of these and you check in them 3 and 4 times, so they actually tell you who was added, right? Because the other 1,000 people that are already on there, I done checked them and already confirmed. So they tell you who was added. So this is the name you need to check. Mohammed, Ben, Ahmed, whoever, Mohammed, yeah. So just those 3 people you would need to check and confirm that they're not on your books. Like I said, back in March, we was waiting on the Russian list. We was waiting for the Bahamas to blacklist Russia or sanction Russia. And we didn't expect all of these people, but then you had to go and check. None of these were on your books. None of these 99 entities. So one by one, you put them in your system. If you had a Russian portfolio, most people, most banks just don't deal with Russia. And so that would have been like the Swiss banks only. But you still would have want to check just in case, you know, these people had US passports or other passports, you know, and they made a slip through the cracks. You wouldn't have known that they were Russian. Or you open this account before 2018. So you still would want to check. Because a lot of times accounts are just categorized wrong. Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, you say under news, because I keep trying to write under news. So you was under the news section, right?
No, I put it in the search like you suggested. But after I put it in the search, then it came up on the news. In the search,
so you put sanction, right?
Yeah, I put sanction in the search, and then it came up. And see, it tells you it's on the news.
International. Oh, okay. International organization. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
It
okay.
tells you, yeah. So it should be in the newest room. It might be in under
And this is for
industry notices.
2022.
Yeah, industry notices, no. Let me see. It's a newest. Let's see. Nothing. See, future. Okay. Media releases. I see where. Well, I just put it in the search and it come up. What if it under these various ones? Yeah, that's what it on no. It just tells you the ongoing recording. Is it under alerts and notices? Okay. No. Yeah, I just put in sanctions there. I don't know exactly where just put it in search and they'll come up. Any where you see international obligation, that's where it is. Yeah. Okay.
So this year, so you said it's sent out to the various
Yeah.
regulators, right? Or they would send it out to the various organizations.
Yeah.
And
So they ask you for one. Once you are regulated under them now, they say send us one email address, either the MLRO address or the CEO address. So I created a generic box so me and the CEO could get it. And if I'm on vacation or what have you, and so it'll say international obligation. So they come to my email.
okay.
Like
And then from there you check,
yeah.
and then from there you check your records to see whether this person, if you have any bank accounts for them.
Yeah, so I go into my system and I put these names in, and then I print out where it says, you know, return no accounts or something like that, and I staple it to the back of this. I print it and I put it on file, and then I save it in the system as well.
And that is sent back to the regulator.
Yeah, then I send my form is form A or B. A if you have the person, and B if you don't have the person. And so I just sign with my signature form B and send it back, and I confirm that dated October 5th, none of these persons are on our books. And they have a generic box that you send it back to.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, like I said, the FIU asked me to copy them as well. And then we are duly regulated. So I get this from the Securities Commission and the central bank, and I have to confirm to the two of them that these people are on our books. And then, like I say, central bank is say just confirm annually that you answered all of these. So I have an annual attestation, you call it, to the central bank. But the Securities Commission, they want you attest every 3 months. So every 3 months, even though they send in these periodically, I still have to send a form B to them saying none of these people are on my books every quarter. I have to attest that. That's the compliant MLRO. Okay, Bria, you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you could clarify failed states and safe havens on page 21.
Okay, so I can't remember the guy's name, but this guy was running in the election when Donald Trump won. I can't remember if he was on the Democrat. I think he was a Republican. He was running in the race when Donald Trump won the primary or to become president, to run for president. he had collected $6 million in one day. And everybody was boasting about it. And Kendrick, any y'all remember that?
Well, you know, hold on, this is the one who went to jail?
No, he didn't go to jail, but it was found out that his father-in-law was this multi-millionaire. 6 million in the Republican primary. Right. And so he did not win the Republican primary. So what happened to that money? Right? And so you have a lot of people going behind people who they know ain't gonna win, but you know, that's a way for them to transfer the money. So now the money transferred to him and it makes him recognizable and people want to follow the money, right?
Mhm.
Of course, you know, and so, but he didn't win. And so did he give his father-in-law back the money? And let's just say, suppose that $6 million didn't come from his father-in-law, suppose it came from various donors. Do you return the money to them after you don't win the primary?
Right.
What happens to it? Right. So
Already.
yeah, so like that. And then what else? You say failed states and what else?
Safe havens.
Safe havens. Where did bin Laden live? Outside the Defense Force Base. See Julian in here, so I can say this. outside the Defense Force Base in what it was in Iraq
Pakistan.
or in Pakistan
Pakistan, right down the
for
road.
10 years. Right there in Coral Harbor. Right? And so was that not a safe haven?
Very
Yeah.
If
much.
anybody come to attack you, the whole army right there to save you, eh? And you lived there for 10 years and nobody from the army knew them there, right under their noses, with your wives, your concubines, and your children. Nobody knew this. We want a network as strong as Bin Laden, and we can use it for our good,
Yeah.
right?
Right. All right.
Yes. Yeah, so various, you know, various ways, you know, people got loans, sympathizers. Some people robbed, some people just save their money. Just like if somebody tell you don't send that money to Benny Ann, what you could say? Or the TDJs, what you could say? No, but I just saying, think about it. What would the Heyman mother say? Not my good Betty Ann, not my TDJs, right? They sending that money, right?
Right.
Yeah, you
Right,
send your
so-
$1,000 seed. That's your $1,000
Yeah,
seed with
of
it.
course.
Yeah, I
You
can buy
pop off.
pretty seed.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
The stick's still open.
Then
Again,
you gotta
when
put
they
your
use,
seed. You gotta put your seed in the ground, you know?
yeah, so it could grow. And so nobody can tell us not to do that. And a lot of Bahamians doing it. So it's the same way Muslims believe in, you know, they go to heaven, they got streets of gold, they got, when they die, when they become suicide bombers, they got virgins and cars and many concubines and wives. So yeah, see, not my good pastor. There you go. If you can't tell Gerardo, don't send that money to Bishop Lawrence Food and help him feed them people. That's the same way the people is, right, Gerardo?
Not my good, Bishop.
Ah, there you go. So that's the same way. That's the same beliefs, the ideology, the beliefs that they have. Okay, and they have a whole underworld that is very lucrative. And they went back to the you know, barter system. They have a whole Hawala payments and stuff like that, where they do exchange all around the world. I give you some bread, you send this money for the school fee, or you take care of this person. So because the banks do so much to block them out, they find, you know, a lot of organizations are unbanked. Facebook is unbanked because they're not regulated. There's no way to regulate them. Or Congress hasn't found a way to regulate them. For a very long time, PayPal was unbanked. And then finally, I think they now fall under money service businesses. So, yeah. And when you are unbanked and unregulated, you just go before Congress and apologize for whatever your company do wrong. And that's what's happening with Mark Zuckerberg every single time with Facebook. You just say sorry. Yeah. Okay. So sanctions, very, very easy to answer. Okay. People like to be afraid of it, but if you work in a financial institution, you should know what a sanction is, how the framework works, what you're looking for. Yeah. So very easy
Also,
question.
what's the name of that site? What's the name of that site you did the sanctioned persons search?
OFAC.
OFAC. Oh,
That's the US.
OF.
That's the US site. So
OFAC.
Office of Foreign Assets Control. See, Office of Foreign Assets Control, sanctions program, but don't click on that one. Go right down to sanction search list.
Sanctions, let's say. Okay.
Yeah. So put OFAC in Google, and that first one will come up. But that will take you to the whole US. They're gonna lost you a little bit. So go right here to sanction search list. And that's why every account that you open, you put their name in the search.
Okay.
And then you print this out and you put this on file, or you save it wherever. If you're saving it on the cloud or electronically, you save it. So that's a part of your KYC or your due diligence. You could have seen it before when I tell you go here, right? You could have seen the screen.
Yeah. I can say just that I was
okay.
trying. Okay, yes. All right. Yeah, I'm on the site now, so yes, fine.
Yeah, so each account that you open should have the sanctions printout on its file, just where it says no results. Okay, it could be blank, but you have to have it on file, and when you do, you are going to risk rate your customers as high, medium, or low. So when it's for review time, if it's a low account, when you do review, you print this out again and you put this on the file to prove that you did do it. Okay, when you go in World Check, they ask you for a part, name, and exact name. So there are two searches that you have to do. And when the regulators come in, if you only have exact match, you get right up. If you only have a part match, you get right up, because they say you didn't properly check World Check.
I do want to search for one of these persons. I don't see any name come up though.
Who's that?
List. Alexander, Abramoff.
Make sure it spells correctly. And then I think I told you all a story about the Russian alphabet. Not every this is actually English. Sometimes it only shows up in there, the Russian alphabet.
Oh,
so you have to go
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put his first name. I just put Alexander and then everybody in Alexander.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
actually on this, his name is Akimov.
See, there you go.
Oh,
so that's what I'm trying to say. Russian alphabet, use their language, because the same, a lot of them named Dmitry, right? A lot of them named Dmitry. Oh, where the Russian?
Yeah, because I see Alexander.
All of them
I see
named
Alexander.
Dmitry. The same last name here, see, is a lot of that is their first name, and you could spell that like 3 different ways with the Russian alphabet. And I almost get into problems with that before. And then the women name is feminine and the man's name is masculine. So that could be husband and wife, or father and daughter, and you wouldn't even know, because the woman would never take, I think the woman is take on CH and the man is take on SH or something like that. Yeah, so if you deal with these countries, you got to know a little bit of their laws or their language. A lot of research you got to do, because you put it in English, nothing coming up. Okay, so you want to be careful with that. Okay, and any other questions or concerns? Be good with the sanctions?
Yes. Okay.
I'll probably email you later in reference
Okay.
to the sanctions groups, the various different groups, and where we can find the actual examples, say, of counterterrorism, conflict resolution, protection of civilians. You say protection of civilians is 12.65?
Hold on 1 second. Miss Bullet, then throw this book on the floor again. One
Miss
second.
Bullet,
Hey, let me pick it back up. Let me pick it back up. Okay. Counterterrorism, you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I got protection of civilians. You say is 12.65, and this is which site again?
Okay. So it should be the UN security site, and you should see different resolutions. Okay, and so counterterrorism is Libya destruction of the Pan Am Flight 748, resolution 883. Conflict resolution, Iran, resolution 2231. Protection of civilians, Rwanda, resolution 1265 and resolution 918. Non-proliferation, Global Treaty 1970. But there should be something against Iran. Donald Trump put out something against Iran for non-proliferation recently, like in 2020, or whenever he was president. And democratization, resolution 940 for Haiti.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, you're welcome. And so the classwork question would ask you, how did COVID-19 sanctioned countries get aid? Okay, and so there were quite a few things that happened. Off the top of my head, Cuba sent doctors to Italy. Then Cuba sent doctors to Dominica on a Bahamas air flight, took them there to assist.
The United States.
Sorry?
I think I was saying where the United States sent vaccine to Iran, and
No, not the United States. United States, because when Iran tried to borrow money from the IMF, like 100 countries was doing, the United States blocked them. This was during COVID-19. Now you say you read somewhere that the United States did something? Because Donald Trump was in power then. No, Iran got 500,000 euros from the UK after Donald Trump blocked them from telling the IMF that they could not lend them money, that it would be against their policies if they loan them money. And 100 countries had gone to the IMF to borrow money for the pandemic. And so it was Venezuela that was speaking out against the US, saying that they were stopping their aid. So China stepped in and helped Venezuela as well as Cuba.
okay.
Yeah. So you could Google those stories to find out. So Iran, 500,000 from the UK, Cuba and Venezuela got help from China, and then Cuba helped Italy and Dominican by sending doctors.
And that's Iran got 500
euros, 500,000 euros from the UK. Because they had gone to the IMF and Donald Trump had blocked it. So I think the UN got involved, but, you know. Okay, so we good with the sanctions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, guys, so very good. Like I say, very easy. Once you do a little research and you read over it again, very easy to answer. Okay, so don't be afraid. And like I say, it's a part of our due diligence that we carry out once we are on board. We need to check. When we do reviews, we should check and keep our records on file to prove that we did indeed check. Because let's just say all the banks that have an account open with Sam, their due diligence is correct, that they need to be there and everything that they check is there. Now, if they go and open up anything else with Sam, they should get some hits, right? So that's why it's good to keep your records, because you need to prove that at the time when we opened this account, there were no hits against him. There was no negative media or anything. However, as of this day, he had negative media and hits. And so are we going to de-risk him? Are we going to close out his accounts? What's going to happen? But I'm sure some institutions got where he has cash. The Securities Commission should advise, or the FIU should have advised that those accounts should be blocked. And in the absence of that, you should be paying attention to the news. And as an MLRO, block that yourself. Now, if you don't read the news and you don't know what's going on and you don't know who FTX is, all you know is this Sam man have all this money with you all. But see, like I said, he's still gonna be a billionaire. Still has 1 billion left.
He's gonna start a new business and a new project all over again.
Kendrick, he has 130 different businesses. 130. Okay. He was building in this center where he was building next to Bayside, 2 hotels, a community center, like 5 different things he was building there, along with his bank. Okay, so he has 130 businesses now. I think Alameda and FTX is registered or incorporated in St. Kitts. I'm hoping that they are. So I hope, it's not only us to get the full brunt of all of this. I think it's St. Kitts.
Also, did y'all hear the rumor that Deltec also might have gotten a loan from FTX subsidiary?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And they shut it down. They say that's just their persons being irresponsible, but they said no. They say they have no debt, they don't have no creditors, and so that rumor is baseless and whatever. But the rumor was going around that Deltec was caught up. They got a loan to help them acquire the Ansbacher building or something. Ansbacher. Is it Ansbacher building or Ansbacher Trust or something like that? What he acquired.
Yeah, but if you read the newspaper on Deltec and Ansbacher, you will see how many cases they up against them and how many times their names was called.
What you mean in terms of what?
Just put them in Google and see what comes up.
Okay.
I don't know what's out there.
Okay.
I don't know, but I believe I saw 1 or 2 articles in papers before. A lot of
Like
them
I
were
say,
just in these class, so I don't
like I
even
say,
comment.
yeah, pirates
I have to
expelled,
turn a blind eye.
commerce restored.
Yep.
Right? Pirates expelled,
Yep.
commerce restored.
And he became the biggest pirate of them all.
Yep.
And then he
Well,
trained the
guys,
rest
y'all
how to
are-
become pirates.
Well, see, at least you're knowledgeable. I love educated people. You're knowledgeable. You know what to look out for, and you're abreast of what's going on. So that's very good. Okay. Okay. So good, guys. If there are no further questions, we'll end there. And I'll see you again next week for another provocative class, right? Where we know what's going on in our country and we seek to do better.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes?
yeah, before you go, I note that the deadline for that first submission, essay number 1 is coming up I believe on Monday. I know last week one of our classmates asked about this bribery that's around the Egmont cases, right? There's 3 of them. You made mention that we ought to use X cabinet ministers and do research on them to see if any techniques were used.
Yes, yes. Or if they are similar to the ones in the back of the book, or you can just say, well, they may not be exactly what happened, but this is what the Bahamas has experienced.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, with our broadband searches, we're just using basically, the internet and whatever sources we may find through the Tribune, well, our local paper, I mean, and we reference it to the ICA referencing.
Yeah, yeah. So look at the page, I think 17 to 20 in the
Yeah,
ICA.
I see it.
Right,
Yes,
yeah. So it tells you what type of referencing they use, and you then just say according to the National Guardian or according to the Tribune,
That's
it's alleged, or Sheehan Gibson, or most of the cases are over. So you could say they were charged and acquitted, or whatever you want to say.
Okay, the only reason why I asked, because like, I just wanted us to see if it was like kind of close, because I told you like where, I study law by correspondence, we use a reference, which is called our scholar referencing. So I just wanted to make sure that they were, somewhat the same. It's basically, whereas, you're citing any information so that there's no plagiarism, and
Yeah.
I think I.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And no large pieces of law. We don't need the bribery or the corruption act. Or, I mean, you could refer to it, but don't rehash it, just reference it.
That's fine. I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question? And no late submissions, please. If you miss November 21st, if that's not a good date for you, go on to the next question, which is December 5th. If you missed that, go on to January 9th. Please don't call me asking me if I just give you a minute or I know. That's the deadline. No late submissions. Okay? And don't send it 2 a.m., 11:59, 12 o'clock. It will not be marked and not accepted. And please don't be like some people who just left this class. They waited to question 4. Question 4 is the hardest question. And they send it in late. Oh, Miss Bullitt, I was on vacation. It's very difficult to pass this class without the 20%. Okay? Then I had somebody saying, Miss Bullitt, I thought once I submit my paper, I get 100%. But if once you submit it, you get 100%, then Miss Bullitt don't need to mark it. Okay? You will get a percentage, and then you multiply your percentage by 0.2. And that's how you find out how many points so far you have. So you should end up, if you get 70%, like 14 points. If you get 80, like 60. And then if you get 100, it's like you get the full 20 points. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, guys. Okay, very good. Okay, so y'all have a productive week. And take care and keep abreast of what's going on, and network. This is a good group, very intellectual group. Please leverage off of each other, help each other, and get your network, your 5 people. If you're hanging out with the wrong 5 people every weekend and they're good friends, continue to party with them, but get some like-minded persons, doctor, a lawyer, a businessman, an accountant, operations person, a banker, and see if you can come up with how to make this money, how to save this country. Okay? Okay, guys, so y'all take care. I'll see y'all next week.
Okay.
Okay, good night.
Miss Bullard,
Yes?
question. If we
Mhm.
submit the homework assignment before the due date, do we have a chance to make like adjustments to that?
No, no.
Okay,
Just one
that's
submission,
only,
that's it. So any questions you have, ask before you submit.
okay. And I think you mentioned last class question 2 and 3. You get a chance to redo those.
Yeah, because there's no redo. No, what I'm saying is if you don't get 70%, I then allow you a redo to get a reasonable grade.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes,
Right.
ma'am.
So, right. But if you do question 4, which most people is may send it late or get it wrong, you stuck with that. So people end up getting 30 and 40% on question 4. So
Okay.
don't take the chance. And plus, once you do the homework, you will at least know if you understand if you and Miss Bullock speaking the same language or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay.
Yes,
good.
ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Yes, don't go through the whole class being confused. So do it up front, get it over with, and you can focus on the other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a good evening.
All right, good night.
Good night.